Hi everyone, this is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. My guest today is Martha Bodyfelt. Martha is a divorce coach, and she works with women to get through their separation and divorce with as much positivity and as less stress and hassle as possible so that we can get on with our lives. Martha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really glad you're here. A lot of women in our community go through divorce, and in their 50s and 60s, that seems to be the transition time. And I know you're quite a bit younger than us, but I think that having some commonality really in that divorce experience is really how you can help us. Most importantly, I think, is practically, how do you get yourself back together, and what the strategies for getting on with your life. Help us with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes when you hear the term strategy, you think, well, it's so overarching and huge, and there's no how can I possibly attain this ideal? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you very general things, and then we can talk a little bit about how do you put those in action.
Great.
So
Great.
The first way that you can move on, and you have to do this is basically the good solid foundation when you build a house, is you absolutely have to give yourself that time to grieve, and you have to give yourself that time to heal.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done that, and if you haven't let your heart heal and let all those emotions kind of be to rest after, speaking with a good therapist and finding support online and different things like that. If you haven't done that, you can't create that new life for yourself. Yeah. You can't write that next chapter in your book. So, and that's obviously going to be a process. It's not like you make up one day and say, hey, everything's great. But you do need to work on that. And you really do need to allow yourself that time to kind of just process those emotions, as hard as they are, and then just come to the acceptance with that.
And we talked in another video about these emotions, and I'd encourage you to go back and have a look at that video, because Martha goes through in great detail the really important emotions that are kind of the deal breakers, like you say. They're the ones that, unless you get those under control, all the strategies in the world for moving on with your life aren't going to work. So let's help us with those specific things.
Absolutely. And so once you have that grief under control, so you're able to move on, another strategy that you really need to work on is finding your own voice. And this is so important, especially for women, because again, we live in this culture, and when we are married, we've even my generation that's younger, it's always been, oh, you're there to be a good wife, you're there to be a good partner. And while that's true, a lot of times when we're in those marriage, we lose what it is that we want. Right. We don't know how to express, well, this is my goal. This is what I want to do. And even during divorce, a lot of times we don't trust ourselves. And so we just go and find advice, and we want people to tell us what to do. Mm-hmm. And the only way you're going to be able to move on with your life is you have to find that voice inside you that says,
yeah, I want this.
You know what, Martha?
Yeah.
This is what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
I want this. You have to have that gut feeling that this is where I want to be, and being able to say, you know what? Hey, thanks for that advice, Mom. thanks for that advice. Yeah. Exactly. Thanks for that advice, girlfriends. But I really need to do this for myself. And you can't move on unless you get that. And
can I just tell you really funny? Just a funny story. When I was going through my divorce, a friend of mine said to me that basically the way to recover is to pretend that you're designing a Broadway show. Mm-hmm. And it was like your show, right? You get to choose who's in the audience. You get to choose the stage. You get to choose the costumes. You get to choose the script. And once you've got that Broadway show, then, your husband doesn't have to be in the audience anymore, or even certain friends. It's just, and that's like what you're saying, defining who you are. It's your show now. Your life is yours to design and enjoy. So that helped me. It really did. It was a very productive, positive thing to do.
Absolutely. And the next strategy I want to talk about that goes hand in hand with that is becoming independent. Mm-hmm. And that's a quest for all of us, but especially when you're going to be on your own after you've been in a partnership where you weren't the only one making decisions. But what does that mean when you're finding your own independence? You have to do that in order to move on. So what are these things? This means being able to support yourself financially. And I know that can be an issue if you weren't working outside the home but that doesn't mean all hope is lost. That you can go back to work anytime that you can. You go back to school, finding the things that you want to do, finding other ways for you to bring in an income. So that financial independence that's empowering. And that's really going to show you, and that's really going to make you believe in yourself that, okay, if I can take care of myself, if I know how to have it, the budget stream coming in, that income stream coming in, if I know how to manage my household finances, there's nothing more empowering than that. Yeah, sitting and looking at the spreadsheet and finding out how much I spent on groceries. Well, that sounds silly, but if you have a hold of that and you're like, you know what? I'm going to have that savings. I know I'm going to be okay. I don't need to rely on anybody. When you have that type of independence. I mean, that's one of the, it's critical to moving on.
One thing, Martha, that I would say though, because I'm hearing little voices in my head as you're talking from the community saying, yeah, it's okay when you're 35, but when you're 60, 65, not so easy. But I think the point I would make, and we've written so many articles about this because it's a big issue that women in their 60s do have trouble finding work. There are things you can do. And I know it's painful. And especially if you're going through a divorce where you were maybe more well off, together you were doing better. It's just living within your means. Sure. And I know that's really hard, but a lot of older women are downsizing. If you've only got X amount of dollars to spend on food, then you have to figure out how you're going to do that. And that's really the same as what you're saying. I just wanted to raise it though, because I could see people typing little comments, but it's true. You take where you are and you just deal with it. So.
Sure. And then, and on that as well, is when you're finding income, that also means that making sure that when you're going through the settlement, that you're getting that spousal support that you need.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you're absolutely, and if, I don't know if your kids would still be home, but if they still haven't left the house, and making sure that they're still, that you find a lawyer who works for you and who fights for you to make sure that that your children, as well as you, are getting basically what you're owed. That if you weren't working outside the home, you were still working, and you deserve, even after divorce, income to you. So when we're talking about independence, that also means ensuring you're getting that spousal support and you're getting that type of alimony or whatever you want to call it, and then living within your means on that if you need to.
Is that a strategy?
What's that? Living within that?
Dealing with the legal side. I don't know whether that's considered one of your strategies, but it's an important thing to do.
We can make it. We can have eight strategies for moving on. So, and along with that independence comes, I think what we're on number 4 now for strategy is finding that confidence in yourself.
Yes.
And so we've talked about finding your voice, finding your independence, finding confidence. And I don't really see them as separate. I don't see them as one strategy because I really think they build on one another.
I agree.
And when you find your voice saying, this is what I want, and when you're able to establish that independence, if it's even, okay, I'm living within the means of the divorce settlement check I get every month. Once you start having that, then try to find your confidence. And by that I mean, start focusing on yourself for a change. And we've talked about this for so long that a lot of times we worry as women about focusing on our husbands or focusing on our kids. And that's great, but we forget about taking care of ourselves. Yeah. And when you start figuring out, well, what is it that makes me happy? What is it that I want to do? And you're finding that confidence that I don't need to listen to other people about my life, and really harvesting that's a great way to move on as well.
You're worthy of your life. I think you feel worthwhile. Like when you get that confidence, you are, you're worthy of success. You're worthy of acceptance. It's a good one. It's a powerful one.
Absolutely. And when you find that you're worthy, that I want that happiness, then I feel that's when you can move on to the next strategy, which is finding out what you love to do. Yeah. Finding what you're passionate about. Yeah. And a lot of times in the marriage, we get that kind of muted, that maybe we don't sign up for that French class, or maybe I can't go back to school because I need to do XYZ for my husband.
It's true.
But once you moved on, it's time that you take care of yourself. You're getting a second chance at life. So find out what you love. Do you want to travel? Does music make you happy? Do you want to volunteer? There's so many things now that you can do, and those avenues that you can pursue that you probably didn't have the chance to. And once you once you really process, I'm worthy of this, I'm worthy of that happiness, I'm worthy of finding that passion, and then you put that into action, you're going to find it's so much easier to move on.
I love that. I love your passion too. It's great. No, and it's so true. This is just, I mean, there's a positive side to divorce that you don't really see until you're through to this point. When you get here, then you see it and like, oh my gosh, I can go to that place that I, always wanted to go. I can, tick things off my list. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's great.
Absolutely.
So
And
follow your passion. Yes, for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And once you find that and you can follow that passion, then, it gives you the chance to start defining your future. And with that comes the idea of planning. When you plan what it is that you want for yourself in the next year, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years, and you're looking at the future where it's you and you're writing the book and you're not worrying about, oh, what's this spouse of mine going to think who doesn't support me or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
These things that you had to
It's
worry
not
about
anymore.
when you were married. When you start finding your own passions and your own future, what is it that I want? And you start planning for that. When you start planning for that financially, when you start putting, okay, I want to go to Spain in the next year. Okay, how am I going to plan for that? I'm going to look for the tickets. I'm going to do the budgeting. I'm going to make sure I have the passport. And little things like that really get you excited about these amazing opportunities that you have for yourself that maybe you didn't have when you were married.
Yeah.
And so planning in your future, whether that's financially, whether that's going back to school, whether that's things for fun, putting that and making that a daily habit of yourself and making it real,
fantastic.
It's going to be so much easier to move on.
And something, once you've done that, then I think you can start developing friendships that just you didn't even know that you needed or that you wanted when you were married. Because I think when you're in a marriage, a lot of women, again from my generation, were like so devoted to their husbands and to their family. That was their definition of who they were. But when you haven't got that framework anymore, you can start rediscovering your own family, your own children, and you can start seeing your friends through a different lens. Maybe get rid of some of those toxic friends that you thought were close to you, and just build your life with your friends, your family. It's very special. Have we done our 7?
7
One more.
Last but certainly not least is, and all of these none of this is linear. All of these strategies you can integrate with yourself at any time when you're moving on, whether it's a month after the divorce, whether it's during the divorce, whether it's 3 years, 5 years later, is treat the divorce as a gift.
Yes.
Because that's what it is. Now you may say, well, Martha, how is having to change my standard of living and living on a fixed income and not being sure of my future financially, how is that a gift? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm about to tell you you're basically given the opportunity during a divorce, and this is all a choice. It is your choice if you're going to do this or not. But during a divorce, you are given the opportunity to better yourself. And by that, I mean, you were in a relationship that didn't work. So it didn't work and you are by yourself now. But what does that mean? You can either stay and be resentful and be bitter and not move on, or you can say, you know what? Things didn't work out in this divorce, but now that means I can now live the life on my terms. And now I have a second chance to maybe pursue the interests that I wasn't able to, or find this part of me that I didn't know about. And divorce, if you treat it as a gift, it also really teaches you, if you'll let it, to really learn more about yourself. And learning about yourself and understanding yourself better, that's, to me, I feel like that's the greatest gift of all. Because if you move on and you understand, okay, what are the things that maybe I did wrong in the marriage? Do I have certain anxieties that I need to work on? Do I have certain methods of communication that maybe I'm not great at, that maybe I need to work on? Are there certain triggers that would make me angry? And I don't want to do that anymore with future relationships or even with myself. So I want to focus on those things. And you might have known about those issues when you were married, but when you're divorced, it really kind of brings them to the front. that, okay, you were miserable about this. Well, if you're miserable about something in your marriage, does that maybe mean that you were actually maybe miserable with something going on inside?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Self-development, I mean, it's a really great opportunity, isn't it, for self-development? And I think especially for older women who, are looking as you get older to sort of enrich different parts of your life, the spiritual side or the to just deepen your self-awareness and be more honest with yourself about, like you said, those triggers that create tension in your life. I think it's a really great analogy. So, are these things, all your 7 things you've talked about? I mean, you walk through these with your clients, presumably.
absolutely.
Where do you think most people get stuck? I mean, it seems like those are all really, really good. And I'm looking at, for me, like, 10 or 11 years on from my divorce, I get it. I mean, I totally get every single one. But where do you think most people find the most trouble?
I think definitely is, I mean, and so there's so many different people at different stages, but I think for me, a lot of times it's actually the stage number 1 and the stage number 7 that
Mm-hmm.
people don't know how to process that guilt and they don't know how to process that sadness. And because of that, they have a lot of difficulty in making the decisions that they need to
For the future,
in order to plan for their future. So definitely there, or I think a lot of times as well, they may have been able to go back to work or they understand, okay, I need to do a budget, but somewhere treating it as a gift that they're still resentful. And so they don't understand, oh, okay, how was this actually a good thing? And so I would say step 1 and step 7 is where.
I think there's probably step 1 is, I'm really glad you answered that way. Well, look, I think that anyone who's listening who is going through divorce or separation, take a look at Martha's website, survivingyoursplit.com. It really is great. And you've got a whole section on different resources and documents people can read. And also you offer a consultancy service, a free call where people can chat with you about what they're going through, and check out the website for that information. But Martha, you're great. It's really been enlightening, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk to you again. Thanks again.